Hi, my name is Joanna Whitney. I am an intuitive artist and a student of natural law. And I'm discussing on Conflict and Consensus by C.T. Butler. But I'm also utilizing it. And so I have my own experience. I want to share part one of today, and then I'm going to do another video later this week, probably, or sometime, which will be part two. Because, I have to take into consideration the changes that have happened since this book was written, which was in like 2008. And my current experience with trying to utilize formal consensus without taking into consideration some of the quote unquote tools that the powers that should not be have provided for us to add to our quote unquote convenience, which are actually destructive to formal consensus, I've noticed. And so I'm just going to discuss my experience with that right now, and we'll see what happens with it. So back in 2008, we weren't texting, and we didn't have chats either. And so when we would come together as a group, we would make decisions together. Someone would take minutes. Certain people would be assigned tasks, and then we would go about carrying out those tasks. Some of the decisions we would have to table till later because we couldn't come to consensus, but most of the decisions we could come to consensus, and we would set about carrying out the tasks. Then we would meet again and discuss what happened, or if we had a problem, we would call each other on the phone and talk to each other, or we would meet possibly, like one group that I was involved in, we had our business meeting once a month. And so we would meet every week. And so if we were having difficulty with any of the tasks, we would talk about them at the other three meetings, like at breakfast or whatever. Socially, we would socially discuss the troubles that we were having with the tasks, and we would just, hash it out together face to face mostly. So we didn't have these complications of social media and texting. So like going back to the principles of the in the book, which are on page 22 to page 26, we have adopted those principles in one of the groups I'm in. And those principles are trust, respect, unity of purpose, nonviolence, self-empowerment, cooperation, conflict resolution, commitment to the group. Active participation, equal access to power, and patience. And then the impediments to consensus are lack of training in consensus, external hierarchical structures, and social prejudice. So I would say maybe we're coming up against external hierarchical structures of just life now, because we're in an extreme materialistic time where we're being bombarded by the influence to be more about self-centeredness, that self-centeredness is a virtue. And it's happening in a very subterranean way. Like it's just like an influence towards self-centeredness and away from thinking of others. And so it's easy to not to miss it. It's really easy to miss what's going on. So one of the important principles here is commitment to the group. Well, unity of purpose, obviously, but commitment to the group. So unity of purpose, let's say if it's a group that's about community, would be that it's for creating community. And then commitment to the group, it would be in joining a group, one accepts a personal responsibility to behave with respect, goodwill, and honesty. Each one is expected to recognize that the group's needs have a certain priority over the desires of the individual. Many people participate in group work in a very egocentric way. It is important to accept the shared responsibility for helping to find solutions to others' concerns. So what I am noticing right now is that I think it's been sort of erased from our memory how to respect the group itself. So, the group itself, in one of the groups that I'm involved in, we actually pray before we begin. And so, and then we get, the information. And I always say that if I prayed first, then the information that I receive is not only mine, it's also supernatural assistance. So, then what happens is that we use these quote unquote tools that have been provided for us, such as chatting on social media like Signal or Telegram, as we're carrying out our tasks, and or texting. So what I've noticed is that we sort of immediately slip back into being individuals and giving our individual opinions about decisions that we made as a group, and then wanting to change those decisions. And then instructing each other to make the changes as if suddenly we are authorities. So this is very disrespectful of the commitment to the group. Okay. If the group is a spiritual entity because we prayed together and we received supernatural power and the group made a decision together, the group itself is greater than the sum of its parts. And so I can't make decisions against the group decision. I would have to wait till the next time we met, and then we would have to reopen the thing we decided and discuss it again together. But then after that, it's done, it's set, because we decided together as a group and we asked for supernatural assistance. So I personally have chosen and decided that I'm no longer going to use these tools, texting and Signal chat, to communicate with members of my group. It's just too divisive. And we've been mind controlled into believing that so many things. There's so many things that we've been mind controlled into believing. Number one, that, individually we're the same as we are when we're in a group, which we're not. We're individuals when we're together. And let's say, even if I'm talking to another member of the group, I'm now in a new group, me and that other member. We're not all the members together, because our personality changes when we're all together face to face. Me talking to another member on the phone has created a smaller subsidiary group on the phone, which is different from the group. And these things, I don't think they were ever relevant in the old days before these new ways of communicating have become relevant. But I think, for me personally, these new ways are divisive, and I'm not using them because I'm just not going to use them. That's it. I don't know how to use them. I'll say I don't know how to use texting and the Signal chat for unity, to create unity. So until I figure out how to use them to create unity, I'm not going to use them, because it's like, I feel like I'm using power tools, without, and I'm cutting my fingers off. Blood is flying everywhere. And I just haven't read the instructions, so, and I don't know where the instructions are. So I'm just going to not use them. I'm just going to go back to using the tools I know how to use. So that's one thing. that's been going on is that I think that my experience is showing me that we have to relearn how to respect the group decision as the decision, and it can't be questioned until the next meeting. That might be difficult for some people. Especially if the people are like strong leaders on their own. Since all of society is influencing people to be super self-centered now, it's just going to come naturally to them to think that they know better, and it's going to be hard for them to remember that the group decision was made together in the group, and that was 4 or 5 or 7 or 10 people together that hashed it out, and that the spirit was moving through everyone when the decision was made. And so that's that for that, and it won't be changed. Also, that the reason we do this face to face using consensus is so that we respect each of our own leadership, that each person is a sovereign being with their own connection to their own higher self, their own higher power, their own God, their own autonomy. And we're using this format of formal consensus to bring out the essential nature of each of us, so that we all feel that the decision is respectful of each of our autonomy. So therefore, when we're separated, we can't direct each other to do something, because then that would be one person becoming authority over the other. And that's a violation of natural law, because there is no authority under natural law. Yes, and I mean, it is possible to have a leader under natural law who is an authority, as long as that person is a servant of the group rather than a tyrannical leader. You know, just because you know about freedom and stuff doesn't mean that you can't become, you know, an oligarch in like a snap of your fingers like that. You can become a tyrannical leader at any moment, if you don't pay attention to how you are leading. You know, if you're telling someone what to do, demanding that they carry out your wishes, then you're nothing more than Klaus Schwab. You know, nothing, no better, no worse. No, well, you know, no worse. Well, maybe even worse, because at least you think that you're different. You know, that almost makes you more dangerous in a way. But so that's why the group comes together. They seek spiritual assistance. They hash out, they spend their time, spend a bunch of time together, several hours hashing out some decisions, and then they go away, and then suddenly the individual members are fragmented into individuals again, and then suddenly start directing each other to do it the way they want. That's not following formal consensus. Each individual member has to respect the decision that the group made, as the group itself is a different entity that we created by coming together. And so this is a big concept, I think, now, because I don't think we ever had to think about this before. But I do want to just say, for example, like, think about how it is when you're texting, when you're with somebody talking to them and you get a text. Don't you stop and like answer the text? I mean, maybe you don't, I don't know. I mean, this is my problem, obviously. So for some reason, I give the text that little ding sound more importance than the person I'm sitting there with. And so what I've allowed to happen is I've allowed these tools to take precedence in my life over what I'm doing face to face with someone, as well as I've also allowed them to interrupt me, distract me. I'm into it. I'm into being distracted now. I like it. It allows me to do like 10 things at once, which I prefer. But if you remember back in the old days, like the old days back, you know, ancient times, ancient Greece, single-mindedness was a virtue. Single-mindedness was a virtue. And now I'm not single-minded, you know, I'm not. You know, I listen better when I'm on my phone. This is not a good thing. I listen better when I'm drawing. That means I don't have a single mind. I have two minds that run parallel with each other. And that's not good. I mean, it would be a virtue for me to study how to unite my minds under God, for me, God or the creator, so that both my minds would be united, not disintegrated. But you see, these tools are very disintegrating for the mind, because I'm allowing, you know, this texting thing to interrupt whatever I'm doing. So now I'm not single-minded anymore. And I mean, I don't know if you guys have heard or not, but there's something now at work called text autonomy, where people want to be able to text while they're at work. And I know I've discussed this before. It's absolutely insane. Like, you know, but these are the tools that have been introduced to us by the powers that should not be, and they're making us more and more self-centered, making us more and more distracted. And now it's affecting community building, because it's just it's in my mindset that I can make a decision in the group and then go away and then talk with others, the individuals from the group, on text, and then we can change the decision that we made together. That's just not going to work. It's not going to work, you know, and that's why I'm going to give up texting. So, okay, then the other thing is, this is the other thing that this allows in, is that people who are not part of the group get to influence the decisions after they've been made. So the group makes a decision, we go off our separate ways, and then one of the members of the group talks to someone about the group, about a decision or whatever. That person doesn't like the decision that was made, tells that to the group member, and then the group member says on text and or chat that this other person who's outside the group doesn't like the decision that was made, so we should change the decision. This is insanity. This is complete insanity. The proper way for this to happen is if the person who is outside the group, you know, emails the group and says, this is a suggestion I'm making. So then we would bring it up in the group together and then hash it out together and make a decision. That's one way. Or that person could petition us to have that person included in the meeting, and they could bring that idea up with us personally if they wanted. Or they could call an individual member of the group on the phone and give them their suggestion, and that person could write down their suggestion in a what would you call it, a neutral, from a neutral standpoint, take it down and say, well, I'll bring it to the group next time. But for someone outside the group to have that much weight, their message to have that much weight, but yet they're not putting in the effort of showing up and being a part of the group, that's carpetbagging. So We can't allow these things to happen or we will not have community. We have to use manners. We have to use the old ways that we did things if we're going to have community again. And I personally feel like it's got to go. All the social media crap's got to go. So to me, see if I wrote anything else. To me, the texting and social media, which I know I've talked about this before, it creates a violation of trust among the members. It's disrespectful because it interrupts, and the texter gets precedence over the people that are face to face in front of you. It is divisive of the unity of purpose. It is violent because of how it violates common manners, which used to be common. You know, we used to have common sense and we used to have common manners, which we don't have anymore. You know, I've heard this thing lately, which is becoming, they're infiltrating this idea into society, which is, I heard this a few times now. It goes, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than to ask permission. Oh my God. That's not putting other people's needs ahead of your own. That's basically saying, I'm going to do what I want to do, and if I get caught, then I'll ask forgiveness. But this is the kind of ideas that are being programmed into us through media now. And that's basically what happens when it's violence, it's an act of violence against another person. If I have to ask if it's easier to ask for forgiveness for something I did than to ask permission, I'm violating someone else's rights. And that's what's going on out there. That's what the influence is right now out there. It's about me being the queen and everybody else being my minion. That's violence under natural law for freedom. Like, we're not going to be free in that situation. It's going to create chaos to live like that, especially because we live so close, in such close proximity to one another. Self-empowerment. So self-empowerment, you know, a lot of people would prefer to let the big loud person be the leader, but that's not freedom. Cooperation, that's going to go against competition, which is another thing that's created by self-centeredness. Commitment to the group. Yeah. So I feel like really social media is totally divisive of the commitment to the group, because the minute the group members separate, they go back to being self-centered people, and they go back to thinking that they are they just think that they're still part of the group, but that they can just change the decisions of the group willy-nilly. So this is a huge problem, and I would actually say that it has to do with lack of training and consensus, the external hierarchical structure that we live in and how we're completely immersed in that, and social prejudices. Like, some people like texting now. I know somebody who actually prefers to wear a mask because of her social anxiety. You know, I mean, it's like people like to text rather than call. You know, ever since I've said to my friends that I don't want to I'm not going to respond to texts anymore, that they can call me, they're not calling and they're still texting, because people like to text because it's a self-centered medium, because you're just expressing yourself and you're not getting anything back. And there's no body language, and it's easier. So anyway, I just wanted to bring these up before I move on to the next video on, what's the next video? I'm still in in going through the different, oh, the next thing's gonna be about, it's on page 72, about the other parts of the group, the big group. But I think we've got some things working against us now that we're gonna have to really take into consideration if we're gonna ever be successful.